All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Sisters Edition, with your host, Ariane Smith.
And Tiffany Hales.
And we have our very special third sister here tonight.
Yay!
Our apostate sister. Her words, not ours.
Exactly.
Hello, everyone.
This is Ciaran.
Hi, Ciaran Birch here.
And if in case you're watching us on video, we do not look like what we our faces look like what we normally look like, but our background does not look like what we normally look like because we are on location. That's right. We have taken TWIM on the road.
That's right. We're in Southern California.
We're in Southern California.
This is how we got Ciaran to podcast with us. We came to her this time.
Yes, we are having a sisters weekend in the LA area. Should we tell them what we're doing this weekend just to make all of our listeners really jealous that they're not one of our sisters?
Yeah.
Okay, well, as you all probably know, if you are longtime listeners of the show, Ariane and I live in the Boise area, and Ciaran lives down here in Southern California. And we have never done a sisters weekend, mainly because, Ariane, you've always had small kids.
I've always had babies. Well, my babies are growing up.
Exactly. So your youngest is 5, and so you felt like, I could probably get away and do a sisters weekend.
Yes.
So this was kind of inspired by a trip I took in February. I went to Austin, Texas, and I went to the LBJ Presidential Museum, and I loved it. And I was talking with my sisters about it, and Ciaran said, well, the Nixon Museum is right by my house. And I was like, well, I've never been to Nixon. Perhaps we need to plan a trip. So that's what started this, is we wanted to Ariane and I wanted to come down to California, hit the Nixon Presidential Museum and hit the Reagan Presidential Museum. But then something else happened.
Then we were blessed with a glorious coincidence.
Yes.
Which is that the Barbie movie
Yay!
is coming out. Well, it came out today.
It came out today.
The exact weekend that we happen to be here.
Yes.
So tomorrow is our Barbie day, sandwiched in between our presidential visits.
Exactly.
We're doing the Barbie movie, and there's also a Barbie experience to be had in LA.
Yes, it is called the Barbie World Tour, and you get to go there. You get to go in all these different Barbie rooms, and they have like pretend Barbie boxes you could get in and do photo ops. But the thing I am looking forward to the most in the Barbie World Tour is they have a full-size replica of Barbie's RV, courtesy of West Coast Customs. So I think that is going to be so fun.
Very fun.
And in honor of the Barbie movie tomorrow, I have been wearing pink since Thursday, and I have committed that I am going to wear pink for a week to honor Barbie, because that is how strongly I feel about Barbie. But you two could not make that similar commitment, probably because you don't have the amount of pink in your wardrobe that I do.
I do not, but I am wearing pink.
We are wearing pink tomorrow.
So yes, we are all wearing pink tomorrow, and Ariane made us some custom Barbie earrings.
I did.
So,
okay, should we mention our mom's weird Barbie rule?
We should talk about our moms.
It has nothing to do with church stuff. Well, who knows? Maybe it does. Maybe she,
in her mind,
maybe she got this from some weird,
yeah,
religious ideal. In our house growing up, we had a rule that you could not play with Barbies.
You could not own a Barbie.
You could not own a Barbie.
You could not own a Barbie
until you turned 8 years old.
Yes.
Right around the time you lose interest in Barbies.
Right. So we were the weird kids that were like, Barbies! And all of our friends were like, over it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is I'm so much older than you two that I got Barbies when I turned 8. And then by the time Ariane turned 8, I think I was like 17 or 18, because we're 10 years apart. And so
11 years apart.
Yeah, 11 years apart. So yeah, I was probably a senior in high school when you turned 8 and could get a Barbie.
Yes.
And then what happened is you inherited all of my old Barbies.
I did. And they were super retro 70s Barbies. Ken had actual hair.
Yes.
And I gotta say, I did not have the love for your 70s Barbies. Now, as a grown up, I'm like, those were really cool Barbies. But as a youth, I was like, these are the most old-fashioned, outdated, ugly Barbies. Ken had real hair.
I did not like the real hair.
The Ken was super creepy.
Very disturbing.
So when I turned 8, I was very excited to get my modern, up-to-date 80s Barbies.
Had you played with my Barbies, or had my Barbies been put away at that point in time?
I think I got to play with yours a little bit before I turned 8, maybe.
Because I have a very distinct memory of your 8th birthday getting my Barbies out and showing you the whole Barbie setup that I had.
Maybe I didn't get to play with them until I turned 8.
To play with all y'all.
But she was only 4 years younger than me. So there was no restraint. Like, there's no holding back. If I'm playing with Barbies, so is the 4-year-old.
But I did not get to own a Barbie.
You had to lease your Barbie from Marianne.
She had to beg me for benevolence.
I was reliant on her. Exactly, benevolence.
I'm sure that every time we played, I probably played with my new 80s Barbie.
I got you.
And I probably
real hair.
handed you the creepy 70s Barbies with the weird clothes.
I cannot believe you're dissing my Barbies.
That is
I'm
accurate.
hurt. I am so hurt.
I actually feel really bad now because now I recognize them for what a relic. Like, if we had those today, they are so cool.
Okay. Do you guys remember going over to our grandma Ison's house, our mother's mom?
Yes.
The 50s Barbies they had.
Oh, totally remember the 50s Barbies.
Those Barbies. Those are some retro Barbies that I did
Yes.
appreciate playing with at the time because
Yes.
I could tell even back then these 50 Barbies were something to behold. They were
Well,
beautiful.
and okay, I guess now that you've said that, Ciaran, I guess I can put in context what Ariane's saying because I remember the 50s Barbies and I was not in.
You didn't like them.
I didn't like them.
You wanted your
Okay.
70s
I wanted my
Barbies.
70s Barbies.
Well, by the time the 80s rolled around, I thought those 50s Barbies were great. I liked them more than the 70s Barbies.
I
no
did
offense.
too.
Well, and here is probably why I'm so excited about the Barbie RV tomorrow at the World of Barbie tour is because I had the 1970s Barbie camper
You
in
did have the
all
camper.
its
Oh,
glory.
I remember that camper.
I will
of
say I
orange
liked the
and
camper.
We played
yellow
with
and
that
brown.
camper.
We
a
did
lot.
like the camper. We appreciated the camper. We just didn't like the dolls that came with it.
Ken with real hair. Ew.
It was the Ken that was really throwing us off.
Ken needs to have plastic hair.
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, now you all understand why we are freaking out about our Barbie experience tomorrow because all 3 of us as kids growing up had the love of the Barbie.
Yes. And probably why we had the love of the Barbie is because we were deprived of it for so long. It's like anything, right?
It's
if
like
you tell a
anything.
kid they
You
can't have
do
it,
They just want it.
they
more.
want it.
They want it
Exactly.
more. They want it more.
Exactly. So yes, we are enjoying our sunny weather here in Southern California, although I'm afraid we brought the heat with us because the temperature here is kind of just exactly like it's like in Boise, 100 degrees.
I
It's like
personally,
it is all over the Western United
I am
Okay, fair
glad
enough.
that it was that hot in Boise so that I don't have to feel bad about you coming here and dying in the heat.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Should we do some news?
Let's do some news. That's
Okay.
why we are here.
All right. We're going to jump into the stories this week, church related stories. So, first one we have is sad news.
And this is breaking news. This
Yeah.
hit like 24 hours ago.
Yeah. So, this was just this week. Sister Patricia Holland passed away, the wife of Elder Holland. She was 81. So the Deseret News did just a great article on her life. They talked about all of her accomplishments and her kids and how she met Elder Holland. I didn't realize this. They said in the article, she grew up in Southern Utah. He grew up in Southern Utah. She was in a small town, and it said her parents moved her to St. George when she was getting older because they
When
wanted
she was
her
16.
They wanted her to find a nice young man to marry. And that was Elder Holland.
And that's exactly what she did. They met in high school.
Yes. And then I didn't realize she had a really big health scare in 2014. I didn't remember that.
I
Did
did
you?
not remember that either. I was very surprised when I read the article
Yeah.
because we've known obviously since, last fall, or maybe it was sometime last year, that Elder Holland was having some serious health issues and he started walking with a walker and
he was on dialysis, we heard.
we heard that he was on dialysis. That's something that recently came out. We haven't known too much about his health issues other than he's feeling better. He's returning to a full working schedule and nobody had said anything that Sister Holland was having any health issues.
And the article didn't really say it, just said she was hospitalized briefly with an illness and then passed away. So we don't know exactly what it was, but in 2014, she had a chest cold that turned into pneumonia and she ended up in the hospital for a long period of time.
Over a month, I
Yeah.
think. And I think it said too in the article that even post 2014, she struggled with lung related issues. And so it kind of makes me wonder, they said this was a brief hospitalization, if maybe she still suffered from some complications of that pneumonia.
Maybe she just couldn't recover. Because she was in the hospital for a while. They talked about how hard that was on Elder Holland. He is
in 2014.
In 2014,
yes,
because he is a go guy, and he had to put everything on pause, obviously, and be with her and slow down. And but that it was also really sweet. They talked about how she was constantly thinking of others, even when she was sick in the hospital and having a hard time breathing. She was worried about the nurses, and she sent one of her kids to go to the gift shop and buy the nurse some slippers because she could tell the nurse was having a hard day. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Anyway, they talk more about how she met Elder Holland, some of her early callings. I did not know this about her either. I always feel bad when I read these articles about the wives that pass away because I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But I usually don't know until they pass away and I'm reading about it. But I should probably take the time to learn a little bit more about them while they're alive. But she was called to serve on the General Young Women Presidency. She was a counselor under Ardith G. Cap in 1984. That was your era in Young Women's.
That was my era in Young Women's.
Did you remember that she had served?
I did not remember that she had served. I remember Ardith Cap because she was the General Young Women's president. And what I found interesting in this article was that, I mean, they had, we had personal progress at that time, but not the values and the young women's, what do you want to motto? The motto came about in the 2 years that Sister Holland served under Ardith Cap.
Right.
And they kind of did the values and did the motto. And so you guys grew up saying the motto. Right. I did not grow up saying the motto at all.
Yeah. So, and I also thought it was really interesting. They were living in Provo at the time that she was serving. And she talks about how she would wake up with her children to do music at 5 or 6 in the morning, drive to Salt Lake, to church headquarters, have board meetings all day, and drive home late to try to take care of her family. I thought that was very interesting because just with a young, and I don't know how old her kids were, but they were still at home. I'm assuming they were school aged.
No, they would have been, because I started BYU in 86 and Jeff Holland was the BYU president when I started BYU. So when she got this calling in 84, so not only is she doing this major church calling, her husband is the president of BYU.
They both have major callings.
So her son, Matt, is a couple years older than me, and her daughter, Mary, is exactly my age. Okay. And then I think David is a few years younger than that. So they were into
she might have only
teenagers.
Had 1 or 2 teenagers at home.
Exactly. Okay. I don't know if Matt would have been on his mission by then, or if Matt would have left 86, 87-ish. Okay. Because the mission age was a little higher then for boys.
You know, I had a class from Matt Holland at BYU.
And how was he as a professor?
It was a little dry, but no offense, Matt Holland. I didn't get an A, so this is why I'm saying.
Oh, she's bitter. She's bitter.
Okay.
He was a poli-sci professor.
But still, I mean, you have teenagers at home, and you can't just you still have to parent when they're teenagers. In fact, in many ways, you have to parent more.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, that was a different era where they would do things like that. You would have 2 parents with major callings. Yeah. We had 2 parents with major callings.
We did.
They don't seem to do that anymore. So I found that very interesting that I had no idea that she had such a big calling at the same time as he had.
Yeah.
Anyway, she lived just a fabulous life. They talked about how when he was the BYU president, they would get up and do devotionals together, and it became known as the Jeff and Pat Show. Because they were so entertaining. I'm like, I would like that.
That's very cute.
They were. They did. They did.
Do you remember those?
Yes, I do remember those, because it seemed like every time he spoke, he was like, "And now you're going to hear from Pat." This was very much a team partnership, sort of a calling. He was, he wanted her there and wanted her participating and wanted the students to hear from her.
They were doing that before it was cool to do that.
They were doing that before it was cool to do that. And so knowing just the really close, tight relationship that they had and still have, obviously, I just think my heart just goes out to Elder Holland, because he must just be so just devastated at the loss. We already know his health is not good. And so it kind of makes me wonder if this is going to hasten the further decline in his health.
That happens,
because sometimes that very much happens. Is it might hasten things along, but again, that is not our timing. That would be the Lord's. But I think definitely our thoughts and prayers go out to Elder Holland and just how much he's going to miss her and their children. Their children are going to miss her dearly as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it'll be interesting to hear his talk at conference this fall, because man, he's had a year.
Oh yeah.
He has had just a rough year.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think we'll all be anxiously rooting for him.
Okay. So we'll be like, okay, you got to hang in there till October so we can have at least one last talk from you. So anyway, there's been no announcement yet about the funeral arrangements. I suspect, just based on what they have done when other general authorities have passed away, that they will hold the funeral in the tabernacle. They usually do. It is usually broadcast on the church channels. And so I'm pretty sure, I would be surprised if it's not broadcast on their YouTube channel, that it will probably be broadcast on their YouTube channel. As those details roll in, we here at This Week in Mormons will keep you updated because we have many a social media platform for that. We have the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram. So we will keep those details updated for anybody who wants to watch that funeral.
I should follow you guys on Twitter. I didn't think I realized you were on Twitter.
Well, we don't tweet.
Somebody tweets.
Somebody tweets.
It's a mystery how this all works.
I kind of understand how the Facebook works, and we have our own Instagram.
I do follow the Twin Sisters and stuff.
We do our own Instagram,
which we should post more on.
Yes,
but other than that, we just show up once a month and record, and somebody else makes it all happen.
I know, and Jeff used to be an avid tweeter, and so I don't know. I honestly don't know who's tweeting.
Someone's tweeting.
Maybe someone's not tweeting. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to our next story. Monday will be the 24th of July. And if you are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the 24th of July is a very celebratory day because that is the day that we honor the arrival of the pioneers into the Utah Valley, with Brigham Young saying, "This is the place."
It's a very celebratory day if you live in Utah.
That's very true.
I don't think anybody else celebrates.
Well, your state doesn't do a pioneer thing?
No.
Are you kidding me? My state does a pioneer thing every year.
No, we never do. And when we lived in Oregon, it was like hit and miss. Occasionally we do one, but not on regular.
And maybe I should take that back because I haven't heard anything advertised for my state's Pioneer Day this year. What they have done for a number of years is the Saturday before Pioneer Day, they do a big breakfast at the old Stake Center, not the new Stake Center, and do games and stuff for the kids. But, my stake is gentrifying. And so there are fewer and fewer kids. So maybe that's why, maybe my stake is like kind of letting that go by the wayside.
Pioneer Day's canceled.
I am surprised with your...
It's a holiday for the youths.
I am surprised with your extra stake that you don't have an extra over-the-top Pioneer Day celebration.
Well, we did do Trek. That's enough.
Trek in modern clothes.
I respect that.
I don't. All right. So because Pioneer Day is coming up, we have several Pioneer-related stories. And yes, Ariane, you are correct. If you live in Utah, Pioneer Day is a huge thing. If you don't live in Utah, what will happen is you will likely sing some Pioneer hymns on Sunday. We have several to choose from. And you may or may not have sacrament meeting talks related to pioneers.
Did you know the ex-Mormons have their own version of Pioneer Day?
No.
Oh, no, I didn't know about this. Okay, you need to share this.
July 24th to ex-Mormons is known as Pie and Beer Day.
What? Oh.
It is where ex-Mormons will go and buy some pie and buy some beer.
No way.
Really?
Who started this?
I have no idea of the origins
How
of this.
did I not know about
I personally have never celebrated Pie and Beer Day, but July 24th for ex-Mormons in Utah involves a lot of beer and a lot of pie.
No way. How did we not know this?
I don't know how we didn't know this.
This is amazing. Hot off the press.
I'm a little dumbfounded. Well, apparently we don't spend enough time in ex-Mormon circles.
You don't spend enough time on the ex-Mormon website. I'm not really on there anymore either, so maybe this isn't even a thing anymore. But as of hysterical. Back in the teens, that was very much a thing. That was a thing.
Well,
there you go.
Okay. Sorry to derail something, but
this is why we love to hear your insights.
Again, because you have insights that clearly Ariane and I are completely unaware of.
I have to pay attention.
Exactly.
Okay, continue with the actual Pioneer Day.
So, they always like to do a thing at the This Is the Place monument up in Salt Lake. They use that facility for a bunch of things, but of course they use it for Pioneer stuff. And just recently, so they have this thing called Daughters of the Utah Pioneer and Sons of the Utah Pioneers. Now, technically, all of us would qualify for that because in order to be a daughter of the Utah Pioneers, you have to have an ancestral connection to saints who crossed the plains and settled in Utah.
We got more than one of those.
We got many. We got
so we're in the club?
We're in the club if we want to be.
Do we have to pay dues?
I don't know. I know that, you know what? See, I know.
Do we have to live in Utah?
No, you don't, because my mother-in-law here, who lives in Boise, there is a whole chapter here in Boise.
What?
And she keeps telling me, you need to join, because she knows I have the qualifications to join. The problem is my joining would bring down the average age, because they're very old.
This reminds me of Gilmore Girls. What was it? Daughters of the Revolution?
Daughters of the American Revolution.
Oh, that's what it is.
The DAR.
This is like the Utah's version of that.
This is Utah's version of that. And so at least in Idaho, they get together once a month. They go to somebody's house. They kind of do a potluck thing. They have a theme. And then somebody gets up and does a little talk or presentation about, you know, some one of their ancestors or something pioneer related. So they do that on a monthly basis. But they're at the This Is the Place monument in Salt Lake, or Heritage Park is what it's called. They always do a pioneer thing the Monday before Pioneer Day. So because Pioneer Day fell on a Monday, it was literally the week before. It was July 17th. And one individual that they invited to speak was none other than Gail Miller. And Gail Miller is, of course, Larry H. Miller's wife. He has subsequently passed away.
Utah royalty.
And she, at this meeting that they had on July 17th, got up and she was telling some stories of her ancestors and how it is that her ancestors landed in Utah. And she said one of the things that she likes to take away, because I'm not going to share the story. Y'all can go read the article that we're going to link if you want to know the exact story. But one of the things that she says is some of the lessons that she's learned from her pioneer ancestors are perseverance, faith, religious conviction, cooperation, community, preparedness, sufficiency, sacrifice, and service. And she talks about how their lives then kind of create a roadmap for our lives. And I really liked that because, I mean, obviously we're not being called upon to cross the plains in handcarts like our ancestors did. But we certainly have lots of challenges that we face in our life. And I have a firm testimony of this, that, you know, you look and you see what those before you went through and that they survived it, even if it wasn't anything that was close to what you did. Just the resilience that you could take away from that in your everyday trials. And so that's what she talked about. And I thought it was a sweet story. And the Deseret News this week and the Church News this week have been highlighting all sorts of other people who have they've asked to talk about their pioneer ancestors and what they've learned from them. And kind of, I think the overall arching theme that I have taken away from this is resilience.
All right.
And that I like.
Very good.
And on that same note, I have the last pioneer related story, a guide to making funeral potatoes for Pioneer Day. Now, I don't know about you. I have never made funeral potatoes for Pioneer Day.
No, I never thought of that.
I never thought of that either. This story was done by none other than Hannah Syriac. And as you know, I interviewed Hannah a couple of weeks ago.
The recipe, the infamous recipe.
This is the infamous recipe. So during my interview of her, now on her Deseret News biography, she classifies herself as a funeral potato connoisseur. And so we talked about that. And I said, do you have a particular recipe? And she went through her recipe with me verbally in the interview. Well, she has now memorialized it in an article.
We can all get it.
We can all get it. So let me tell you a couple of the highlights of her funeral potato recipe. First of all, clearly this woman has no children because these are very labor intensive. Mm-hmm. And if you had small children at home, you'd be like, yeah, that sounds really good, but girlfriend's got no time for that. Mama's got no time for that. So she starts with russet potatoes, she boils them, and then she shreds them. But here's where things get really interesting. you need butter for funeral potatoes. No legit funeral potato recipe just doesn't, every legit funeral potato recipe has butter.
It's true.
Hannah makes her own.
I heard her say that when you interviewed her, and my jaw literally dropped. I was like, what?
Yes. So what she does and what she says is you shake a mason jar full of heavy cream until you have butter.
Okay, I have a vague memory of doing this in kindergarten.
Okay.
So maybe...
How long does this take?
Maybe you could put your kids on it and be like, shake this up, children.
Oh.
It's a science experiment.
Because, I mean, I've whipped cream in my KitchenAid. I haven't whipped it to butter stage, but like my KitchenAid is going pretty fast to get to the whipped cream stage, because I think you have to get to the whipped cream stage before you get to the butter stage. So I'm sitting there going, my biggest question is, and maybe I should have tried this before I podcasted, and maybe I'll try this next week. How long does it take when you put the heavy cream in a mason jar to get to the butter phase?
I remember in kindergarten it took forever.
That's what
I was also a kindergartner, so
true.
Everything took forever.
That's true. So maybe I will try this out. Hannah swears by the making your own butter, so I probably should not knock it until I actually try it myself.
All right.
Try it in your KitchenAid first.
Yeah, you don't have kids at home anymore. You try it.
Exactly. But I'm also thinking to myself, if I need an arm workout, I think shaking the mason jar full of butter is going to help me for an arm workout. So the question will be, what will last longer? My arms or the butter? Which one will give out first?
But you could turn on some music and like
do a dance party, get a workout. Anyway, so, and
right,
Hannah...
You need to try it and report back.
Yes, and Hannah always tops hers with sharp cheddar cheese. She was absolutely adamant.
I am on board with that.
Me too.
Yes. And she does cornflakes. She does not do the Ritz crackers.
Cornflakes are better.
So,
I'm on board with that also.
Well, see, I like the Ritz crackers better than cornflakes.
I think I like either.
I
can do either.
I could eat either, but I like a cornflake.
Yeah. No, I think we need to try out the butter thing.
Okay, here's my question. Is she using canned soup in her recipe?
Yes, she does use 1 can of cream of chicken soup.
Okay.
But she does say, of course, if you'd like to make the very best funeral potatoes, make your own condensed soup.
I have done it the way where you make your own. Mel's Kitchen Cafe has my favorite recipe. He doesn't use canned soup. You make your own.
Has your favorite funeral potato recipe?
Hard. What?
Your own, your favorite funeral potato recipe.
You don't use canned soup. In Mel's Kitchen Cafe.
So how do you do it?
It's like a roux with like butter and chicken stock and like cream. It's not hard to do. It like super elevates it. It is like, it goes from here. It's like next level good.
Now, see, I can get on board with that more than I can get on board with making my own butter, because making my own butter just sounds really hard. Yeah. Unless I'm whipping it up in the KitchenAid. Shaking in the mason jar. I just don't think I have the arm strength for that.
All right. You've got our next one, Ciaran.
I'm up. I specifically requested this story as the Californian here. This is another Hannah Syriac, which, by the way, hi, Hannah. I actually met her last year at the Mormon History Association conference. Missed you this year. I hope I get to see you again next year.
We're like her fan club here.
She's lovely. I love her.
Well, and what was funny is before I interviewed her, she didn't know that you and I were sisters, and you sent her a text and said, hey, my sister's interviewing you. And Hannah was like, oh, small world.
Small world. There's only 5 Mormons, and we all know each other. This is an article about the actors' strike impacting the Chosen season 4 release date. Obviously, everyone knows, especially here in California, a very big deal. Actors are on strike. They just started striking last Friday, and LA is pretty much shut down. And it has affected the Chosen, which I have not seen the show, but I have had it recommended to me by a very good evangelical friend. So,
okay, but the question is, will it affect the Book of Mormon video production? Probably not, because they're not members of SAG.
Yeah.
If they ever want to be members of SAG, they better not scab, because the thing is, if you act in something and you're non-union and they find out you're acting in something, you will never be allowed to join SAG.
So even if the Book of Mormon actors aren't part of SAG, if they ever,
like if they're aspiring to
be in SAG,
dear. Because don't you have to have I think you have to have a certain number of hours before you could apply for SAG.
A certain number of speaking parts
or something like that. So it could.
Now I'm stressed for them. I hope nobody pressures them into this.
I mean, it depends on what they want to do with their future.
I have no idea what the recording schedule is. Anyway, back to the Chosen.
So Chosen's official account tweeted that its petition to to continue filming during the strike had been approved. Filming will resume Monday. Ooh. But then we come down here and it says,
well, that's the update on the original article.
That's the update on the original.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The original article said they would have to stop production, but they were filing a petition.
Oh, got it.
And then they got their petition approved. But
now, how
are they doing that?
I don't know.
Because they for sure have actors that are probably members of SAG, right?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
And writers,
but they got a petition from SAG. So if SAG grants the petition,
maybe they got a religious exemption.
Yeah, maybe SAG was like, well, everyone needs a little Jesus.
We need more info.
It could do the world some good right now.
So, so I guess that we'll continue filming, and hopefully those actors are not banned from SAG.
Well, and I wonder if it's one of those things that like maybe they're close to finishing season 4, that they're like, okay, let's wrap it up,
maybe
because to get everybody back together. But then if they wanted to start on season 5, SAG would be going, no, no season 5 for you till the actor's strike is over.
That's interesting, because it seemed like everything stopped immediately there was a London premiere of the movie Oppenheimer happening,
and they walked out
right as they announced the strike, and they all walked out. So I just assumed it was like an immediate, everyone was gonna not be there.
Well, and as Ariane mentioned earlier today, the saddest part about the strike is Margot Robbie, who stars as Barbie.
She stopped her Barbie tour.
We didn't
get to see the rest of her wardrobe
because she had awesome dresses for every single premiere she was going to, and press junket, and it was so good.
I know there's people out of jobs, and this is a bigger deal than that, but that was like really sad for me.
It was really sad for me too. Probably really sad for the people who designed her stuff that never got seen and photographed.
That's true. So
it's rough.
All right. Well, we hope this is resolved soon, for the benefit of all.
Yes. All right. So my next article, this is out of LDS Living, and it is entitled "Meet the Evangelical Pastor Who's Building Interfaith Bridges with Latter-day Saints Through YouTube." So there is a gentleman by the name of Jeff McCullough, and our very own Kurt Frankham has actually interviewed Jeff McCullough.
I remember that. It was right after conference, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like he came out to Salt Lake and went to conference.
Yes. And so Kurt interviewed him. I know I went back trying to see if it was released on the Twin platform. I know he released it on his Leading Saints platform, but in my mind, I thought it was released on Twim, but
I thought it was too.
I couldn't find it. So I thought, well, maybe I saw it on Leading Saints, or maybe I'm just really bad at looking. In any event, I knew that Kurt had done an interview. Well, LDS Living did an article on him and kind of went into his background. And he actually started out in kind of video production and was going around doing that sort of a thing, and just realizing that, this isn't really what I'm called to do. I need to be a pastor. And so he kind of changed his life course, became an evangelical pastor, and he originally had done some videos where he did not have really kind things to say about members of the church. And so then he was in Utah, and because he likes to come hiking, and he's been to Utah several different times, and he kind of had this just epiphany while he was in Utah. I need to get to know a little bit more about members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So he started studying the faith. He started going to several sacrament meetings. He started asking questions and just kind of learning more about it. And then he started this YouTube channel, which is called Hello Saints. And part of this YouTube channel is he debunks a lot of myths about members of the church. He's very curious about members of the church. And one of the things that he has learned and that he has to do is he's like, fight criticism with curiosity. So whenever he hears something that maybe he's like, that's crazy, rather than do that, he's like, well, why do they do that? And so he puts his criticism on a shelf, opens up his curiosity to figure out why. And that's kind of his core mission of Hello Saints. So he's gotten some backlash because people have found these old videos he's done where he's been critical of members of the church. And he's gone on and said, well, look, I've evolved and I've learned, and we should all evolve and learn. And we don't have to agree on everything, but we can certainly understand each other. He has 50,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, so that's definitely legit. And and he said it's also interesting because some Latter-day Saints took him with a lot of skepticism because of his original videos. And so since then, he's become, like I said, friends with a lot of members of the faith. And one of the things that he really appreciates is he says, I absolutely adore and admire people of the LDS faith because they are about family, they are about serving, and they are about devotion. And it has really grown since he has really kind of been studying things. And so I really liked that message. He also said, one of the core messages is we share a belief in Jesus Christ. And so we can focus on the things that we have in common and not worry about the things that divide us. And I'm like, no truer message in today's society. And maybe if a lot of people could take that message where he's like, I'm going to focus not on criticism, but on curiosity. And one of the reasons I really liked this story is about 2 years ago, and I know we talked about this on the podcast, our cousin Mike is a bishop. In a Boise area ward, and he had, just to kind of refresh the listeners' recollection, you all are both very familiar with this. He had an inclination that an anti-Mormon was going to show up on Fast Sunday, as we like to call it, Open Mic Sunday. And so rather than open it up for people to come up and voluntarily bear testimonies, he had asked specific members of the congregation to come up and bear their testimony. So one or two of them did that. This gentleman who was anti-Mormon sat in the back of the chapel, started to walk up to the front of the chapel. Mike had a plan in place where his counselor got up and said, we're going to dismiss sacrament meeting right now. And then they started to have this conversation with this guy saying, you need to leave. He was very confrontational. They had to call the cops. It became kind of a real thing. In fact, you have a friend in that ward. Yeah. What did your friend in that ward say?
I have a friend in that ward, and even after, they had a restraining order on the guy, so he had to be a certain amount of feet away from the church. Well, every Sunday when they would go, him or maybe one or two other of his group would stand however many feet they were required across from the church and protest.
I watched those videos. After this happened to Mike, I went to that guy's YouTube channel and I became obsessed.
Yeah, he also has a YouTube channel.
Videos. Not anymore. So, I tried to look for it.
Oh, is it gone now?
I tried to look for it a few months ago because I wanted to see what he was up to these days. Yeah, yes, I saw the videos of him on the sidewalk at the required feet away from the church.
So they were actually locking the door of the church because he kept trying to come in, or one of his
associates.
So they were actually locking the doors to the church building and having a member of the elders quorum stand by the door to let the families in as they came to church, which is really sad. You don't ever want to have to lock your church doors.
Exactly.
It's not like they had to, but I think they just didn't know what else. They just didn't know what else to do because the guy just kept coming back and disrupting.
And when he was actually in the chapel, this was videoed because he'd had his wife video it and put it up on his YouTube channel. Well, I actually was talking to Mike this last week. He called me on another thing. We were talking, and I'm not even sure how it came up that we started talking about this guy. And he said, Tiffany, I have an update for you. And I was like, please give me an update. So this individual, he lives within Mike's ward boundaries. In fact, he only lives a couple houses away down the street from one of Mike's counselors in the bishopric. And they were over at this bishopric's house, and they were doing some youth activity that night. And the youth activity was wrapping up. And all of a sudden, this gentleman, his name is Jody, comes walking towards Mike and the counselor. And Mike looks at him and he's like, do I know this guy? And as the guy gets closer, Mike realizes who he is. They're not on church property. They're on street property. He so he's kind of bracing. And the guy walks up to him and he says, Bishop Deppy. And he says, yeah, I'm Bishop Deppy. And he's like, I don't know if you remember me. A couple of years ago, I was at your ward. I created disruption. And Mike's like, oh yeah, I remember you. And he said, I want to apologize to you.
What?
I know.
This is why his YouTube channel
took it down.
Is up. And so they had this whole apology.
Wow.
They had this conversation. He took a picture with Mike. Mike ended up sending a text, I think, to everyone in his ward and a bunch of people. And I just want to read you. I said, Mike, please send me this text. I said, I want to give an update on this on our podcast. And so he said, I wanted to share with you this picture of Jody and I. Jody is the protester that disturbed the sacrament meeting a few years ago. We had an activity with all the youth and others tonight at the home of one of my counselors, and Jody came over and wanted to apologize to me and ask for his forgiveness. He told me he was in a bad place and has changed into a better person. We had a great conversation, and we even invited Jody and his wife over to be judges of the youth spaghetti cooking contest. His heart has been softened, and truly sorry for what he put us through. It was an awesome and special experience. This is a truly tender mercy from the Lord, and I needed this. Truly, the atonement is for everyone. He has so much light in him now.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
It's such a happy ending.
It is such a happy ending.
Wow.
That's really good. So, I will say, his videos on YouTube, he was not just hassling Mormons, he was hassling other religions too. He was an equal out. He thought everyone was going to the bad place.
Well,
so I hope he's chilled out on all the religions. I hope he's just good now.
Do you have a very big apology tour to go to?
I hope he apologized.
Many different chapels.
I hope he apologized to the Catholics and the Jewish people as well. These were also people he was hassling.
Wow. Well, I just so interesting. Like I said, that he realized had some self-awareness and realized
amazing.
You know,
and that takes a lot of
guts
to come back and say sorry.
Exactly.
I mean, it's one thing to quietly take down your YouTube videos and disappear, but to go back and say sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Exactly. So when I read this story about Jeff McCullough and his Hello Saints channel, I just thought this dovetails in so nicely with that, because it's kind of the same thing. Jeff McCullough started off kind of bashing Mormons, and then he learned a little bit more and got his head in a different place, and now all of a sudden he likes us.
Well, very cool.
Well, maybe we should watch for that guy's new YouTube channel talking about
maybe we should.
Oh, maybe he'll be the next Jeff McCullough.
Okay.
Next story we have is a Jenna Reese story. She is speculating on that she believes Vacation Bible School for Mormons should probably be a thing. You know, Vacation Bible School are Christian brothers and sisters. This is very common in most Christian denominations. They do it in the summer. I have often thought about signing my kids up, and then every summer I miss, like, we have some really good friends that go to a big Christian church, and every summer I'm like, tell me when the sign up is. I want to sign my kids up. And then we always forget, and I never get my kids signed up. But I have had some envy of the Vacation Bible schools that these other churches have. So Jenna Reese is saying that she read an article recently, a news story about the church. I don't know where she saw it. I'm assuming on Church News or LDS Living or something, that there have been some wards in Utah that she thinks might be piloting a program.
A Vacation Bible School program.
Now, this is speculation.
It's pure speculation.
We don't know for sure, but this report was about a stake in Utah that organized 2 single-day trial runs for a Saturday camp for children age 8 to 11. And kind of modeled after like the FSY model is the idea. They were looking for like young single adults and others to volunteer for the stake day camp. She thinks that this might be some type of pilot program that they are trying out, because she said that at one point, President Corden had mentioned that part of the secret sauce of FSY is that it's a multi-day event. So she's speculating perhaps that's where they're thinking of going with this trial. Anyway, she would love to see it. I, as a parent, would love to see it. But she does point out the hard part will be finding the volunteers.
Yes.
Because with a Vacation Bible School, in general, they do have a lot of volunteers, but they also have paid staff, I believe.
Right.
So that they are set up, I think, more for this model than our church. But I also will say that our stake every year, once a year, at the end of beginning of summer, they do a primary activity day for boys and a stake primary activity day for girls. Now it's not all day, it's half a day. The boys have the morning, the girls have the afternoon, but you come to the stake center and they do very similar to Vacation Bible School type things. You learn Bible stories or whatever we're studying that year and have fun activities to go along with it. And my kids love it. So, I don't know.
Okay.
Interesting thing to keep an eye on.
All right.
Hopefully before Cam ages out.
I know. I got to get some kids in there.
Okay. We'll just go through this one real quick. Another article by Hannah Syriac. This one is about the origins of the Utah pink sugar cookie. Apparently, this is not on the crumble menu anymore, and I'm very upset about this. Not permanently. But Hannah writes about where it came from, and apparently
where she alleges the origin.
Okay, apparently
I will say majority of people in Utah allege it came from this place, but
I allege it didn't.
Tiffany has a different theory.
I have a different theory.
Allegedly, the pink sugar cookie originated from a gas station called Dutchman's Market in Santa Clara, down in Washington County. It exploded in popularity. People go there just for the cookies, I guess.
I've been there. It's a good cookie.
I have never been there, but next time I'm in Southern Utah, I need to go.
Don't pass up that cookie.
I'm going to track these down. I'm going to Southern Utah this fall. So they, that's where they are allegedly, but Tiffany has another theory as to where the pink sugar cookie originated, in Utah.
I have another theory. And, well, this is actually not even so much a theory. This is based on fact because I lived through it. So I'm not making up fake news. So this Hannah's article refers to an article in the St. George News about the Dutchmans. I pulled up that article. Dutchman said the recipe, this was an article that was done in 2014. They said, we started this 28 years ago. So I did the math. So that would be 1986. Okay. So it's critical that you understand the timeline here. Okay. Here's why this is critical. 1986 is the year I graduated from high school. Okay. And I went to BYU. Okay. Now, when I arrived at BYU, the big thing to do at BYU was to go to Hart's, which is right at that time it's a convenience store. It was right across the street from Helaman Halls. And you would go there and you would get a pink sugar cookie and you would get a Diet Coke. Best Diet Coke in town was at Hart's. And so these pink sugar cookies were known as Granny B's sugar cookies. And they came from the Hamalik family. Now, the Hamalik family lived across the street from me when I moved back to Provo.
I remember that.
Yes. So when I moved back to Provo, after I was married, they lived across the street from me. And they had a restaurant that was south of campus in the early 80s because her husband worked for Geneva Steel and he got laid off from Geneva Steel. So they had this restaurant and they sold, her grandmother had this cookie recipe. They sold the cookies in the restaurant as a dessert. And pretty soon they were selling more cookies than they were selling pasta. And so then they expanded out to these convenience stores and sold the pink cookies. And they were loose like the pink cookies we have now. The difference is they had sprinkles on them. The pink cookies we refer to now don't have sprinkles. And then eventually they got a big manufacturing plant and they came prepackaged. So,
and you still see them in gas stations.
You still see them in gas stations, packaged up,
not like a fresh.
So I don't know if because they're packaged up that makes people think they weren't the original pink sugar cookie. But I think the Hamaliks beat the Dutchman. Maybe. I think Granny B beat the Dutchman by a couple of years.
Maybe this is the original cookie war. The Southern Utah cookies versus the Northern Utah cookies.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds like a documentary in the making.
Okay.
Somebody needs to get on this.
Okay, Hannah, we're throwing this back to you. You need to get on this and do some research.
If you need Granny B's.
If you need Diane's number, I think I still have it.
Okay. All right. What's next? Oh, we have this fashion story. This was a really fun story. It's pretty long, so I'll just summarize it. There is this young adult Latter-day Saint guy. His name is Pono Skousen. He is a fashion designer in New York City. What a life he has lived. He started out in Miami as a dancer. Then his family moved to California. And instead of dance, he got into sewing. And he gives credit to learning how to sew to the Relief Society.
Because did he go with his mom or his grandma to Relief Society?
He went with his mom.
Okay.
And they were sewing like pillowcases and things. And he really took an interest in it. But his mom didn't know how to sew. So she asked these Relief Society sisters to take him under their wing and teach him some sewing because he was so interested in it. And that kind of spurred this like lifelong passion for sewing. And he's a young guy. He went on a mission. He's back from a mission. He got into the very prestigious Parsons Design School. This guy better end up on Project Runway someday.
Exactly.
Or I'm going to be very sad.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's a great piece about him. Just such a unique guy and such a unique career for a young LDS
And he's a returned missionary as well.
Yeah.
In fact, he applied to Parsons before his mission, got accepted, decided to go on a mission, came back, applied again, and they let him in because they were so impressed with the growth that they had seen.
Right. Well, and they said he grew so much because he got to work on the costume
for the Book of Mormon
films.
Exactly. So yes, he is one to watch.
So Relief Society success story.
Yes. Okay, next we're going to hit Steve Young, famous BYU football player, then went on to play for the 49ers. ESPN, he has been a sports analyst for ESPN for a number of years. I think he was making about $2 million a year in his sports analysis gig. And ESPN had to engage in some cost-cutting measures. So Steve Young, he got axed from ESPN, but he was in good company because he got axed with 7 other gentlemen that were all sports analysts and very well known for ESPN in their cost-cutting measures. But don't you worry, he's got a new job. Although it probably doesn't pay what ESPN pays. He is going to be an assistant football coach for the flag football team that his daughters, who are a senior and freshman, play on.
It's very cute.
It is very cute.
I know.
He lives here in California. This flag football just recently got approved. It's an inaugural high school sport and season in California, and he's going to be their assistant coach. The head coach of the team is John Pay, who played with Young on the 49ers from 87 to 89, and he's been a longtime coach at the school. So
that's very nice.
I know. I thought that was really cool.
It's really cute, and also how intimidated are the other teams?
Exactly. So not only do you have one professional football player, you got two. And I think this is so cool because he quit playing professional football before any of his children were born. So they have no idea about this career. And now he gets to coach his daughters. How fun. So big props to Steve Young.
It's very cool. And I love that they're coaching the girl teams.
Exactly.
They didn't get poached for the boys football
teams. Exactly.
Because I'm sure those boy football coaches are drooling.
Yes.
Can we get some help over here?
Exactly.
Okay, what are we on now? Temple updates, really quick. Okay, we have 2 temple groundbreaking dates that have been announced. We've got the Modesto, California temple. They will be breaking ground October 7th. And we have the Fort Worth, Texas temple, which will break ground on October 28th. So
very cool.
I didn't even know they were building a temple in Modesto.
Yeah, California is spotted with temples.
I know the ones around me here in Southern California. Modesto is an odd choice, but
hey, it's a big state.
Central Valley needs a temple too.
It's a big state. You got to get them going all the way up.
Got to get them all the way up the coast.
All right. Before we move on to Mormons behaving badly, I have to cover one last story because it is related to the TWIM podcast. So there is apparently a site. It's called feedspot.com. And feedspot.com has an article that was released July 13th that says the 30 best Mormon podcasts. Does anybody want to guess what number 1 is?
This is very exciting.
Number 1, according to feedspot.com, is This Week in Mormons.
Oh my goodness. I feel like we should be celebrating.
I know. It says This Week in Mormons is a podcast for Mormons, friends of Mormons, and enemies of Mormons.
Oh, really?
Enemies? Yes. It is roughly 45-minute podcast consisting of a roundup of news and cultural items relevant to the Mormon community.
Okay,
so
guys, apparently, I'd like to think you're the reason it's number 1.
Oh, well, I would like to think so too, but we do have lots of good hosts,
lots of TWIM contributors.
Yes,
so
we cannot do this all by ourselves.
Well, I'm biased, so
okay, fair enough. All right, let's move on to Mormons behaving badly. This is a doozy. This is a doozy.
This is a classic Mormons behaving badly. This type of story is why we created this category in the first place.
Exactly. So this happened in Alpine School District. So Utah County, let's just set the stage there for anybody who is familiar with Utah and the comings and goings of Utah County. There are some parents down there, and these parents have a son, and their son apparently wanted to have sex with his girlfriend. And apparently had sex with his girlfriend, and the parents were trying to prevent him from having more sex with the girlfriend. So as a result of trying to prevent him from having more sex with his girlfriend, he had to be accompanied by other persons when he was with his girlfriend, and they required him to travel to and from school with his older siblings. So apparently the Alpine School District has a policy the last week of school. They take attendance for the first 2 hours, and then they don't care if you stay or what you do after the first 2 hours. So what does JD do? All we know is his initials. JD and his girlfriend get together and hook up and go have sex in somebody's car at the school parking lot.
3 times it said in that article.
Yes, 3 times.
I can't wrap my mind around that.
So, mom goes to the school trying to find her son, can't find her son anywhere, is upset that the school doesn't know where her son is. Apparently, she ends up finding her son, but in a rather compromising position that she's not very happy about.
Time number 3, I guess.
Number 3. So, what do all good parents who find their sons engaging in compromising behaviors do? They sued the school district for allowing this to happen. I kid you not, people. So they filed I believe it was a federal lawsuit against the school district. Yes, it was, because it was a U.S. district judge who issued a decision. Now, here's what really chaps me. When they filed the lawsuit, they identified themselves as John and Jane Doe. They did not even have the courage to use their own names. What does that tell me? They knew this was wrong. They knew this was, I mean, if you feel like your lawsuit's legit, don't go by John and Jane Doe. Use your name. Anyway, I'm miffed about that too. So they filed this lawsuit, and here is what they allege. They allege, of course, their faith says, no premarital sex. And so they claim that the school district violated their rights under the 14th Amendment because they violated their fundamental right to make decisions concerning the care, custody, and control of their children, because they said, well, the school district should have told us that they weren't going to take attendance so that then we would know we needed to be on our son so he wouldn't be hooking up with his girlfriend. So they allege that. They also allege that that because the district provided the opportunity for JD to engage in premarital sex while on school grounds, it violated their free exercise of religion. They allege that the district did not do enough to help them enforce their religious beliefs. And the judge basically threw their entire case out.
Obviously.
As the judge should have. The judge said the district has no constitutional duty to modify its internal procedures to further the Doe's religious goals. And the judge also said that the district does not have a requirement to prevent their son from engaging in premarital sex, that there was basically nothing on the district. So again, son's behavior is bad, but in this situation, I think the parents' behavior is worse.
Parents are who we are nominating.
Exactly.
He was just being a teenager.
You know what I think? I think we're really lucky this wasn't all over the national news.
Oh, are you kidding? Yes, we are.
Because we found this in a Utah publication.
Yes,
this was Tribune.
Was Salt Lake Tribune.
We are so lucky. This is the kind of headline that will get on national news and make us look like wackos.
As well it should. But yes, we are very fortunate that none of the national media has picked this up and gone, what are they thinking in Utah? So that is Mormons behaving badly. All right, let's move on to favorite things.
Okay, would you like to go first?
As our guest of honor,
I have a favorite thing, and it's Mormon related, so this is very exciting.
Ooh.
I recently attended the Mormon History Association conference in Rochester, New York. Back in June, it was delightful, and I met a wonderful couple there while we were doing a church history tour. They are, I don't remember. Chris and Janae Baird. I almost lost his name. Chris and Janae Baird. They are from Dallas, Texas. They are art collectors, and they have an Instagram for their art. They have over 400 pieces of original artwork that they have been collecting, mostly from living artists.
And is the artwork all Mormon or Mormon adjacent?
Mostly Mormon artists, mostly Mormon adjacent art. It's not all just about, the art's not necessarily all church related stuff, but the artists are mostly Mormon. And the most incredible artwork, they are the ones who actually own the painting. And I cannot remember the name of it. The painting in the conference center, the big painting with the women
the angels
on, that beautiful
blessing the woman.
Blessing the woman. They're all coming down. Mm-hmm. I don't know why the name's slipping from me, but they are the ones who own that. It's on permanent loan to the church now, apparently. And they have this whole Instagram full of their incredible artwork. It is called the Baird Collection. All one word, the Baird Collection.
The Baird Collection
Baird,
on Instagram.
On Instagram. Baird spelled BAIRD.
Okay.
And I actually told her about this podcast too, so I hope she's listening. Janae, please be listening if you are. Your art collection is wonderful, and you and your husband are delightful. So
okay, well, I want to definitely check out her Instagram page.
The Instagram page. It's wonderful.
That's very
cool.
How
fun. Okay.
Ariane, what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing this month is a show on Disney Plus.
Oh.
It's called A Small Light. Have you heard of this show?
No.
It was so good. We watched it with our 2 teenage daughters. It is a show, a dramatization about Miep Geiss, who is one of the people that helped the Frank family hide during World War II.
Oh, I have heard about this.
So she was an employee for Otto Frank at his business. And there were several other employees that helped also, but she is one of the main people that helped them hide for many, many years. And it follows her and her husband. And so the Franks are in the video. It's about the Franks, but her and her husband are the main character and what they were doing throughout the war to help the Franks and other people. And obviously it has a very sad ending. But it was so inspiring and just so well done. The acting was great. The set was beautiful. It takes place in, Amsterdam. And, it was so good. And so good to watch with our teenagers.
Oh, and did they like it? Did they appreciate it?
They loved it. They were very into it. I mean, it's like, I think 8 or 10 episodes. And every night they were like, can we watch another? Can we watch another?
Wow.
And they learned so much because neither of them had read the Anne
Frank. I was
just
going to ask if they...
No, neither of them had read Anne Frank Diaries, which I read in middle school.
Yeah, that's a classic middle school read.
Actually, one of my oldest daughter might have read part of it, I think, in English, but my second oldest has not read it yet. And they actually haven't learned much yet about World War II. I think they'll get more into that in high school. But so it was very educational for them and really got them thinking. And it was very well done.
Nice.
So, very cool. Okay, well, now that you two have done completely substantive favorite things, I'm going to do something that is just utter fluff and fun.
That's always good too.
So, and this is, because we're in California, this of course is California related. So I love NBC's Chicago Wednesday. I like Chicago Med. I like Chicago Fire. I like Chicago PD. Of course, first of all, it's the summertime, so it's reruns. Second, we've got a writer's strike and an actor's strike, so I have no hope of seeing new episodes. So and NBC had this in the works for a while. They have a summer replacement show that they air on Wednesday nights I think in the time slot that Chicago Fire is on, maybe the time slot Chicago Med is on, because I always watch it the next day on Peacock. It is called LA Fire and Rescue. And so it is a reality-based show, and it focuses on fire departments and fire squads from here in the LA area. And they have probably, about 6 different squads that they focus on, and they go out with them on calls, and they have them all over the city. Like they have a station in West Hollywood they're following, a station in Watts, a station in Palmdale, Compton, Claremont.
Claremont, that's the town next door.
I know. Well,
I gotta watch this.
You gotta watch this because
it's like Cops, but it's like firefighters instead.
Because
problematic. I remember Cops. I've seen a lot of Cops.
Yeah,
Cops
no,
is
this
my
is
guilty pleasure.
But this is, in my opinion, this is better than Cops. I like the firemen better than the Cops.
Yeah.
Anyway, in Calabasas and Inglewood, and then up in Malibu. And it is so good. First of all, it's Dick Wolf. And Dick Wolf Productions. And he does all of the Chicagos, and he does Law and Order, and he does some other stuff, other shows on CBS as well. So the production quality and the production value is really good. You don't have to you can sit down and watch an episode. It's not dependent on what happened the week before. Right. And so it is on Wednesday nights. I believe it airs at 7:00 if you are in the Central and Pacific time zone, or Central and Mountain time zone, 8:00 if you are in the East Coast or Pacific time zone. But if you happen to have the Peacock channel, which I do, you can catch it the next day on the Peacock channel. I did check to see if it's on Hulu. It's not on Hulu. The only way you can watch it streaming is on Peacock.
Okay.
If you don't catch it in real time.
Only lets his stuff stream on Peacock. All the Dick Wolf stuff is only on Peacock.
Oh, really? Well, he must.
Law and Order. I can't find it anywhere besides Peacock.
He must have a deal.
He's got a deal.
So I didn't realize Claremont was one of those. I definitely have to watch this
I didn't realize that either. And there's a bio on the Claremont one. They've got I haven't seen Claremont focused on yet. I've seen some of these other stations, but apparently there is a chick captain at the Claremont that they focus on. So
anyway, have to watch it and look for spots that I know.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, well, Twim Nation, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And as always, you can find us on all of the social media. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. If you are so inclined, please become a Patreon supporter. We do try and do extra content for Patreon supporters. And the Twim siblings, although I don't think they're going by the Twim siblings right now, Matt and Melissa did mention last week in their podcast, when you get onto Patreon, if you try to be a supporter, it looks like we're asking for $70 a month, because that kind of freaked me out.
What?
And I was like, yeah, you're not worth $70 a month. But
you can enter whatever amount you want. You can enter
whatever amount you want. So I'm not sure how the 70 got there. So I entered an amount of $3 because that's
don't be scared.
That's what I thought was appropriate. So yes, don't be scared. Please be a Patreon supporter. Get some of that extra content and help us keep the lights on. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.